Hey everybody, thanks again for joining us for May the 4th. I'm Thor, and today I am joined by an amazing voice actress. You know her as Hera Syndulla on Star Wars Rebels. Please, everybody, smash those heart buttons for Vanessa Marshall.
Hey, hi everybody. May the 4th be with you. Happy Star Wars Day. Hope everyone's having a good one.
Thanks for joining us. This is great to have you on such a perfect day for this.
Yeah, I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So I want to start off since today has a lot of big news when it comes to Star Wars and especially the Clone Wars show. I think most people obviously probably know you as Hera, but you also had a role in this last story arc of on the Clone Wars as a Rookcast, right?
Rookcast, that's correct. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, being the comic book nerd that I am.
Son of Dathomir? There it is.
Yes, I have it here, and there she is. But I got a call, or actually an email from my agent saying, would you like to be in the Clone Wars? Now, I've been watching the Clone Wars since it began and have been a huge fan, so I, wept. And then when they proceeded to tell me that it was Rookcast, Mandalorian. Now, I'm a huge fan of Bo-Katan, would much rather, be kicking it with Bo-Katan, but hey, fine. Darth Maul has an interesting backstory. So, his evil, it runs very deep. And, if you go back to some of the episodes with Savage Opress, you can get a better understanding of why he might be so angry. And of course, his previous time on Mandalore. But anywho, I was thrilled to get this role, and I am currently working on the cosplay for it. So next time we're all together. Next time we're all together, people, if you see Rookcast, that just might be me under that helmet.
Wow,
what?
That's amazing. I guess that's a little easier to do at a convention, just having a helmet on than full on green paint and the head tails and everything.
Yeah, a little bit. Although I do have the leku, and I have them here to show you in our later portion when we go into show and tell.
I mean, you can't just bring that up and not. I can't make people wait for that. Let's see them.
Hold on. Okay, first of all, this has a backstory which I'll also get to.
All right, I like that.
My first Star Wars weekends that I went to. There was a woman who waited outside in overnight to hand me the following gift.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like plush.
I don't know if you can see the detail.
Yeah.
That, but it is like full blown.
That's really nice.
You put it on and the whole thing. Her name is Allison Barrios. She has a website on Etsy. I believe it's Cosplay for Jedi. If you Google it. She does them for Ayla Sakura. She has all kinds of leku for anyone who needs it. But that was the first example of how loving, kind, generous, and completely amazing the Star Wars community is. I literally wept that someone would stand outside to hand me something so completely cool that they actually made themselves. So Allison, if you're out there, thank you for your kind gesture. It will never be forgotten.
That's awesome. Those are really cool looking.
I actually have other sets that I got online that I ordered when the bill came in euros. That's when the woman told me that she was in Barcelona. So I also have leku from Barcelona. Don't ask, but shout out to them as well. But anyway, so over the years, there have been many gifts, including this necklace that I'm wearing. This is a Hera necklace. I don't know if you can see.
Oh, yeah, I can see it.
But sorry to give you my chin detail there. But upstairs, I have a Star Wars room. And if you've ever given me anything, it is located upstairs in my home. So thank you for that.
And you're in your recording booth right now at your home.
I am indeed. Yep. This is where the magic happens.
Have you done any recording for Hera in that studio?
No, that we've done everything at a special studio altogether. I've never had to do remote records. Although in the pandemic, I'm sure we would manage and do what we had to do if necessary. I've recorded other things since the lockdown. Right.
And so tell me about the Andy Warhol Hera behind you.
Oh, okay. So, all right. As you've heard, sorry to go out of frame constantly, but
good.
I'm Mama Hera, and many of us in Rebels were very true to our characters, right? So when anyone was hungry while we were recording, being the mom, I would go get everyone bananas, because if you eat a banana when you're standing in front of a microphone, the sound of your stomach when you're starving that goes, the minute you eat a banana, delete. You're good. No more music coming from your insides.
Well,
So
is it
then,
really picking up on the microphone?
oh yeah, you could have this intimate moment, and then you hear, oh shit, and it's like, okay, dude, you need to eat something. So anyway, then Zeb, alias Steve Bloom, being the comic that he is, he found this image, right? So this became like our inside joke and what we tweeted each other constantly, and etc. Then the artist who created this image, his name is Stephen Quick, he sent me this image as a joke, right? So I'm now best friends with the person who created this GIF or GIF. We can have a whole discussion. I believe it's a GIF. Anyway, but so, and I made t-shirts of this one and I gave them away to fans. So if any of my friends in Toronto, you have these. I got friends down in Daniel. There's a bunch of people who have these shirts. All you had to do was email me and ask for one. There was a limited series created by Kevin Weir in the 501st of the SoCal Garrison. He helped me print these out. So, more Star Wars family stuff here.
Of course.
What's going on.
That brings me to a question I had. So when Disney they acquired Lucasfilm in 2012, it wasn't until 2015 that Force Awakens came out, and Star Wars Rebels, that was premiered in 2014. So Rebels was actually the first piece of new Star Wars content under the Disney banner. So I imagine there was probably a little bit of pressure on you on that. I mean, can you talk us through like your mindset of how that was in the early days of Rebels being out?
Well, yes, we all knew that we had a huge monumental task ahead of us, and we were all up for it because we all revere all the films that had come out prior, and huge Star Wars nerds. Tia and Taylor were less familiar with it because they hadn't grown up with it quite as much as, say, me or Freddie or Steve, Mary Elizabeth. So they brought out a whole Bible of all these characters and where the whole story is going to go and this and that. And it was really mind-boggling what we were immersing ourselves in. And we quickly bonded and became this sort of motley crew, just like the actual Rebels crew. And we still hang out. I mean, thank goodness Freddie's such an uber nerd that when he gets Sam Witwer to DM these Star Wars role-playing games. We have so much fun together still. And Dave has called me the Lucasfilm alumni chairperson because I am constantly getting everyone together for meals. So I think it's great to hang out after. I love these people. We got to spend so much time with each other, and I feel connected to them for life, much like I do with all the fans and friends that I've made along the way.
And, speaking of connections, the connections that Hera had with Kanan and that relationship that was built out over the whole series. I mean, that's not really something that we got to see too much of in Star Wars. Was a really fully developed over a long stretch of time relationships. How did you play that with Freddie over the course of those years? I mean, because by the end of the series, obviously it's a little heartbreaking what happens, but I mean, it's because of what went into it that I think that fans had that reaction.
Well, I believe, and A New Dawn sort of illustrated Hera's ability to seek out the proper constituents of, what she needed for her crew, per Fulcrum's suggestion. Of course, that would be Snips, Ahsoka.
Yeah.
But I think, as she discovered him, they have a history. I loved reading that book. That was very helpful. And I believe that both of them sort of decided that the task at hand was far more important than what seemed like, forgive me, but petty romance. Like who cares about that type of stuff when, lives are at stake? There are many more important things, like perhaps, and maybe that's what makes it more heartbreaking, is that they thought they would have time for all that later. And I think that's why she was so gutted when he actually, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Rebels, Kanan takes a vacation of sorts. Okay.
Some way to put it.
Sure. The quite the nap. Anyway, but I think her life lesson at that point is that you should never wait to say or do anything. And I think particularly right now in the middle of this pandemic, I highly recommend saying all that needs to be said. I mean, that's true pre, post, during pandemic. That seems to be always the case. But I think they focused on their specific military goals and were robbed maybe of what they could have had given the sacrifice that he made.
Yeah, I know I have a lot of friends and also myself that really went through a lot of emotions watching that whole thing go down, but it was just great. The performances that you and Freddie put into that was just amazing, and just it's still there. Anybody can go back and rewatch that, and it's just such a good thing to see.
It really came together, and it was, on the page, it's sort of a paragraph, and you can't imagine what they're going to create with those colors and the music, and the overall impact was just devastating. I'll never forget it.
Yeah. And again, I guess we're going to get into a little spoilers with Rebels, but that's okay. You mentioned that, everyone considered you the mom of the group. And then at the end of the series, you actually got to be a mom. Hera got to be a mother on the show. Do you think that your motherly tendencies behind the scenes played a part into that idea?
I really have no idea. I was just as shocked at that as everyone else in the final moments there where that was revealed. I had no idea. I think it's a beautiful way for her character's arc to end, where she's created all these wonderful things in terms of all these successful missions, but to actually create a life and to have Kanan live on through their son, I think it's just a beautiful gift all the way around, and I had no clue. I was just shocked.
Yeah, I think a lot of us were. I mean, that last episode is so many moments of that shock and awe you, and that was probably the one that I expected least out of everything that happened that episode.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah. So we have a lot of awesome fans watching on Facebook right now, and I know they've got questions they want to ask you. So we're going to do some questions from our fans. And then I also want to mention to everybody that's watching, our good friends at Hallmark are going to be giving away some prizes, some Star Wars Day prizes to some people that ask the questions in there. So make sure to throw your questions in there, and we'll pick 3 winners at the end of the stream. So with that being said, here's our first question. Sam wants to know, are there any lessons you learned from playing Hera in Star Wars Rebels, and what future stories would you like to see Hera in? And he also says, thank you for playing such a hopeful and inspiring character.
Oh, what a great question. I learned many lessons from Hera. I think one of the attributes that I loved the most was her focus and her humor. And I would find myself asking myself, what would Hera do? If there was something that was perplexing me, if I was taking something too seriously or taking it personally or whatever it is, I'm thinking, Hera would just get right back on task. She would go right back to the mission at hand. And so it kind of helped me sort of become a better person, I think, with sort of less distractions. And future stories, I of course want to know where's Ezra. I need to know Ahsoka and Sabine. Where are they? I'm curious if Hera's son has Force sensibilities. What's going on there? He obviously did not get my Leku, so just want to know where things landed in that kid. But hopefully we'll get some version of that either in a comic book or I don't know. I'm sure there's a story there. While Rebels is done, there's a version of what exactly happens after that I think could live anywhere, and I hope it does.
Mm-hmm. And, it's really interesting. You say that you get inspiration from Hera and you're asking yourself, what would Hera do in your real life situations? And I think as fans, that's one of the coolest things to hear, because that's what we do. We look up to these characters and we think in our daily lives, how can we be better people? And that's really kind of what the message of Star Wars is. So to know that you're doing that too, that's crazy. It's mind blowing and super awesome. That's really cool.
Definitely.
And great question, Sam. Let's get another question up. Morgan wants to know, he says, Vanessa, you're amazing, and Hera is one of my all-time favorite characters. What did you love the most about Hera's overall character arc?
I really loved how, as I said, she's very focused, but I feel like once she sort of rose in power, she was less responsible for everything. At the beginning, she really had to sort of play things. She wasn't number one, she was number two. Why? Because she didn't want number one to get killed. Like, she couldn't make herself number one. She sort of played in the background, but had a heavy load on her shoulders to pick the right people for the crew and to move their mission forward. And I think as she sort of got higher in the ranks, and I think Kanan stepped up a bit more, she was able to relax a bit and really open her heart. So in a weird way, I feel like she started in her head and then landed in her heart. And then, of course, her heart was broken. And then with the birth of Jason, I think things are restored, and it's sort of a renaissance, if you will. So I think that's a pretty rich, rewarding journey. And I think we all could live in our heart a little bit more, to be in a place of gratitude and openness and humor and joy. She's always been somewhat sardonic, but I think she really, really, when she loses all to Thrawn with the Calicori and whatever else, when she says, I have my family, and she's referring to the Rebels crew, I think that's a very significant moment. And I think from the very beginning, the show always talked about how sometimes bonds that are, not of blood, but we have a chosen family, sometimes those bonds can be even stronger. And I think in a weird way, when I've met all my friends in the Star Wars universe, you guys are my family. And I feel like that bond is stronger than any blood relationship, So, I think she had a really cool journey, and one that we could all learn from.
Yeah. And I think that was probably one of the biggest takeaways for me with Rebels is, the idea of family. I mean, it's such a huge theme that goes out all of every one of those seasons. And it's just something that really ties the whole thing together as a whole. And so, having you at the end finally becoming the mother is sort of just the icing on the cake for that.
Yeah.
Cool. Great question, Morgan. We have one from Michael. He says, how do you compare first seeing a Star Wars movie to the first time you recorded on Rebels?
Well, the first Star Wars movie I saw was the actual first film. And I was a kid with my cousins in Colorado, and my aunt took us to the movies, and I had never seen anything like it. From the moment it began, the music began, and we've all talked about, the Star Destroyer and the rumble and the words coming up across the screen. And for me, I was just gripped from that moment on. And then, Princess Leia's hair hooked me for life. That was like game over. Her moxie, her sense of humor, get this walking carpet out of my way. I loved her. But cut to recording Hera, ironically, we had the shorts to record first. And I don't know how, but I actually didn't receive the script in advance. I don't know if it went to junk mail. I'm not really sure what happened, but I showed up the first day wondering, gosh, why didn't they send me a script? And then they handed it to me right then and there. And I thought, uh-oh. Well, I like to prepare things. I like to research. I go in when I'm for Marvel, for everything. I have books and books and books in my house that I love that. I love research. So I was winging it on the first day, praying to God that this was going to be okay, and I emailed the casting person after, and I was like, I really hope that was all right. She's like, yeah, it was fine. Whew, maybe because Hera is so close to my heart, it was cool to sort of improv the script, or at least it felt like that to me. But luckily it worked out, and you got a sense of Hera's soul and her caring and her humor. And, I got my scripts in advance from that day forward, and very grateful for that. I've had many times where I just have to take a deep breath because I literally cannot believe how amazing it is to have played Hera. Truly, it's such an honor and such a gift.
Wow, it's crazy to think that you had to just kind of put that all together on the spot for that very first recording session.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I just took direction, and thank goodness it went well.
Nice. Very cool. It's a great question, Michael. Let's see what else we have up here. Bill wants to know, how was working on Clone Wars different than working on Rebels?
Well, that's also a great question. The difference for me was not only I didn't have to audition for Clone Wars. They said, do you want to play that? So that's very different. And I only got the segment that I was in. So I really had no clue and didn't want to know, frankly, because as a fan, I really wanted to get everything out of this Disney Plus subscription. So I was somewhat flying blind. I had a feeling, I had prepared a bunch of different backstories in my mind as far as her motivations and intentions and her history. Obviously, there's some provided in the comic that I mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. So I went with 3 different voice ideas. Dave picked one, and it was a richer, deeper voice with a British accent. And once we found that voice, we laid it down, and then I was excused and then had no clue what else they were doing. Sam Witwer was there, Ashley was there, Dee was there, no clue what they were doing. So I just humbly bowed and said, thank you very much. All my dreams have come true. Bye-bye.
So it was the first time you saw that when it aired on Disney Plus?
Yes. And it made me want to dye my hair purple. Her hair is so cool. I was like, maybe she's Sabine's long lost cousin. What's going on with that?
Yeah, I was getting some Sabine vibes from her. That's crazy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, she's got excellent hair.
You've had a really long history with Star Wars as far as the voice work you've done. A lot of video games, the Rebel shorts you mentioned. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but not Knights of the Old, Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast as Jan Ors. That was your first Star Wars job?
Yes, that was incredible. Yeah, that was incredible.
That game actually, totally unrelated or very related, but it's now just been made it's available on the Nintendo Switch now too. So I think a lot of people that weren't playing at that time are now kind of picking those old catalog games back up again. Can you tell us a little bit about that as being your very first Star Wars job?
Yeah, well, unlike animation, where we're all sort of together and creating stuff, for a video game, you're very much alone. So I was working with Dara, the director, and, we usually do 3 takes of each line. And I just sort of, again, took direction. I was listening. I was heart-centered and hoping that, what I was putting forth was in the ballpark of what they were looking for that character, and just tried not to fangirl out, kept it really mellow. I've had many hyperventilation attacks in my car post jobs where I'm like, what? I think when season 6 of Clone Wars dropped on Netflix, and I had a few questions for Dave Filoni after we had recorded Rebels, and he just dropped some knowledge. He was channeling Lucas. That's another day that I went in my car and completely wept. Because really, I could ask questions. It was insane. It had to do with Yoda and Qui-Gon and
right. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, The watching all the behind the scenes stuff on the Rebels DVDs, like all the extras in Rebels Recon, is all archived on those. It's really fun to see those interviews with you and the rest of the cast, and
Yeah, we
and
had so much fun.
Dave especially. Yeah, he really, I think, for the fans, bridges that gap for everyone. You know, now that George isn't as involved anymore, like everyone loves Dave Filoni. And I've heard that the new show on Disney Plus, the behind the scenes of the Mandalorian show, like is pretty much just if you didn't like Dave Filoni now, you'll love him after watching that. So I haven't seen it yet, but
I haven't seen it yet either. I can't wait. I can't.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think we got time for maybe one more question before we keep going. Steven wants to know, how much of Hera reminds you of people you know, and did you draw from your experiences with your own family?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, my aunt who took me to the first Star Wars movie is very much like Hera. She's an amazing mom. She's also very ethical and focused. Also has a lot of joy and a good sense of humor. Not a pilot, but her kindness is something that I have tried to emulate in my own life. I grew up here in Los Angeles, and my mom was an actress. Well, she still is an actress, Joan Van Ark. She was on Knots Landing and Dallas, and with that came People magazine on my front lawn when I was trying to get on the school bus, going like, and she was always like, fabulous, like full hair and makeup. And I wanted to play football, and like, I'm doing pretty good with the lipstick today. Thank you. But my nature is more like, give me a lightsaber. I've got my original Chewie here.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
Off card. Don't judge.
No judgment. That means well played with.
Yeah, no, I love this kid. Anyway, so for whatever reason, I felt like my aunt was a little bit more grounded in reality. She lived in Colorado, still lives in Colorado. And I definitely draw from her in my own life, but also in terms of creating Hera. And there are various women whose strength I've emulated. Some of them are characters, some of them are friends. And I think it's sort of a big smash up, if you will, of all their best elements. I tried to sort of put them into Hera. I love my mom for sure. Whenever there's like, hey mom, how do you do eye makeup? Like, she's got that aspect. That's not all, but she was definitely more helpful on maybe some of the more external things. And her sister, my aunt, has been more helpful in terms of guiding me on sort of deeper, more spiritual questions in a weird way. But anyway.
Well, that's cool. I mean, it's like you have a perfect balance,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So we're about to wrap up, but I know after this, we're going to be doing a live tweet along to the season 2 episode, Wings of the Master, which is a very Hera heavy episode. It's the one where Hera discovers the bee wings from the Mon Calamari that's named after Ralph McQuarrie. Do you have is there anything that you can remember that sticks out to you about that episode that you could share with us?
Oh, definitely. Well, actually my dad, he was a news reporter for many years at NBC, won Emmys. And so my mom was an actress. My dad was a news reporter. They both were sort of in the entertainment business. My dad always had a love of flight. And so when he retired, I dared him to learn how to fly a plane. So not only did he get his pilot's license for a Cessna, but he went and got a license for an aerobatic plane and took me up for a flight in that. Oh, my goodness. We both looked like Snoopy with the goggles and open wind. And all of a sudden he shut the engine down and I heard nothing but the wind blowing through, the wings, like shh. I thought my dad had passed away.
Wow.
I was like, how the heck am I going to land this thing? And then we did a nosedive. And then what happens when you do that in these aerobatic planes is and then he guns it and then you twirl and twirl. We did a hammerhead and we were upside down. And, oh my Lord, it was fantastic. Anyway.
He took that challenge even further.
Yeah, it was like being on the Falcon. It was fantastic. We did not hit light speed, but But what I love about my dad's values and his humor, again, is what he has with his pilots. There's a particular worldview that they have, that they spiritually need to get up in the air to get the perspective on all that happens below, and that it's not just an activity, it's a spiritual need, and it's something that really it's fundamental to his core. Mm-hmm. And so when I did this particular episode, not only is it a B-wing, but I very much appreciate the pilot's worldview, and was able to sort of tap into that from where my dad is concerned. And so it was a very deeply personal episode, and I dedicated it to him. So It's one of my favorites.
Wow, that's great. That's such a great story. And I mean, I don't know how where do we go from there? That was amazing.
Well, I actually can take you elsewhere. Hold on.
Oh, one more. Oh, and I'm going to announce Jamie Lopez, you're our first winner. Whoa. I assume that came in the mail recently.
Yes, it did. I ordered it like in the 80s or whenever they started selling these, but I'm no longer alone in the pandemic. I mean, how cute is this, right?
That's amazing.
Who's winning? I'm so excited.
I haven't seen one of those in real life yet, but I think I need to get one now that I see it.
Could not be happier. Wow. Anyway, so whatever brings you joy in the pandemic, go find it.
Awesome. Great advice. Vanessa, thank you so much for doing this. This is really a huge treat for us, especially on May the 4th. I know that you're in your sound booth because you're a busy actress. So keep doing great work. We love everything that you've done. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much. Happy 4th.
May the 4th.
May the 4th be with you.
Hi, this is Aaron Ashmore, and you are watching Fandom Spotlight. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe like now. Oh, and have fun and follow your fandom.